Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab for more stories. Now let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Architect of Quiet Lives. Neil West had built his life on precision. At 42, he stood 6 feet tall, with the kind of lean build that came from morning runs rather than gym memberships. His dark hair showed distinguished threads of silver at the temples, and his gray eyes held the calm intelligence of someone who thought 3 moves ahead. As a structural engineer specializing in earthquake-resistant architecture, Neil had spent 2 decades ensuring buildings wouldn't crumble when the ground beneath them shook. He'd never imagined he'd need those same skills to keep his own life from collapsing. He met Marissa Stanley at a construction site 12 years ago. She was a hospitality consultant, 28 at the time, evaluating a hotel project he was working on. She had auburn hair that caught the afternoon sun, green eyes that sparkled with ambition, and a laugh that made him forget about load-bearing calculations. Their courtship was a whirlwind. 6 months of late-night dinners, weekend getaways to wine country, and conversations that stretched until dawn. They married in a small ceremony overlooking the Pacific, with Marissa's younger sister Beverly as maid of honor and Neil's college roommate Kelvin Callahan as best man. Emma arrived 2 years later, a green-eyed miniature of her mother with Neil's thoughtful temperament. Now 10 years old, she was sharp as a tack, excelling in 5th grade and playing competitive soccer. Neil coached her team on weekends, teaching the girls that sometimes the best play wasn't the obvious one. For 9 years, their life in Oak Ridge, a suburban enclave 40 miles from the city, was everything Neil had hoped for. Marissa built her consulting business from their home office, traveling occasionally, but always returning with stories and gifts for Emma. They were partners, parents, people who finished each other's sentences at dinner parties. Then came the opportunity that changed everything. 18 months ago, Marissa was offered a position as director of operations for the Grandview Hotel Group, a luxury chain expanding aggressively through the West Coast. The catch: she needed to be based in Riverside, a city 3 hours north, overseeing the renovation and reopening of their flagship property. The salary was substantial, nearly triple what she made consulting. It would set them up for Emma's college, early retirement, the life they'd always planned. "It's temporary," Marissa had said, her hand in his across their kitchen table. 18 months, maybe 2 years maximum. "I'll come home every other weekend. You and Emma can visit. We've talked about investing in her future. This is how we do it." Neil had reservations. He'd seen enough marriages crumble under the weight of distance. But Marissa's eyes held such determination, such hunger for this achievement, that he couldn't deny her. They were solid. They'd survive this. "We'll make it work," he'd agreed. For the first 6 months, they did. Marissa came home religiously every other weekend. They video-called nightly, Emma chattering about school while Marissa described the hotel's renovation progress. Marble imported from Italy, a rooftop bar with views of the river, designer suites that cost more per night than most people's monthly rent. Neil would fall asleep some nights to her voice describing crown molding and color schemes, feeling the distance like a dull ache, but managing it. But around month 7, things shifted. Marissa's visits became monthly, then sporadic. She was slammed with deadlines, dealing with construction delays, managing difficult contractors. The video calls grew shorter, her attention divided. Neil noticed she'd redecorated her apartment. He could see glimpses of expensive furniture and artwork in the background of their calls. She'd always been frugal. This new extravagance felt off-brand. "Mom's different," Emma observed one night after a particularly brief call. She sat on Neil's lap, her small face troubled. "She doesn't ask about my games anymore. She's stressed with work, honey," Neil had replied, though doubt had already begun its corrosive work in his gut. "She still loves you more than anything." 3 weeks ago, Marissa forgot Emma's birthday. Not just the gifts, she forgot to call. When Neil reached her that evening, furious, she'd been mortified, tearful, full of excuses about a crisis with the hotel's grand reopening. She promised to make it up to Emma, to do better. But Emma had cried herself to sleep that night, and Neil had sat in the hallway outside her room, listening to her muffled sobs, feeling something cold and hard solidify in his chest. That's when he decided they'd visit Riverside for Marissa's 40th birthday this coming Saturday. No warning, no chance for her to prepare her apartment or her story. Just a genuine surprise. Him and Emma showing up with flowers and cake, celebrating like a normal family. Kelvin had thought it was a bad idea when Neil mentioned it over beers last Friday. "Brother," Kelvin had said, his dark eyes serious above his pint glass, "if you're suspicious enough to do a surprise visit, you're already past the point of surprises. You think you want to know, but once you know, you can't unknow." "I have to know," Neil had replied simply. Kelvin had nodded slowly. "Then I guess you do. But listen, whatever you find, don't react in the moment. Smart men play the long game. Anger makes you stupid, and stupid gets you screwed in divorce court." "I'm not planning to react," Neil had said. "I'm planning to know the truth." Now, driving north on Interstate 5 with Emma beside him, birthday cake secured in the trunk, and a bouquet of Marissa's favorite peonies in the back seat, Neil felt his heart hammering against his ribs. Emma was quiet, staring out the window at the passing farmland, her small hands clutching a handmade card she'd spent hours decorating. "Dad," she said softly as they passed the Riverside city limits sign. "Yes, sweetheart. Do you think Mom will be happy to see us?" The question pierced him. That his daughter even had to ask felt like an indictment of everything they'd let happen. "I think she'll be thrilled," he said with more confidence than he felt. "It's her birthday. Nothing makes a birthday better than seeing the people you love most." Emma nodded, but she didn't look convinced. Riverside's downtown core was a mixture of historic architecture and modern development. The Grandview Hotel dominated the riverfront, its freshly renovated facade gleaming in the afternoon sun, a testament to Marissa's work. Neil had looked up her apartment building earlier. It was in the waterfront towers, a luxury high-rise 6 blocks from the hotel. Top floor, corner unit. The rent alone was probably more than their mortgage back home. They parked in the visitors' lot at 3:47 p.m. Marissa had mentioned in passing weeks ago that she usually worked from the hotel until 6 on Saturdays, managing the weekend changeover. They'd have time to set up in her apartment, order dinner, really surprise her. The building's lobby was all marble and chrome, with a bored-looking doorman named Pedro who barely looked up when Neil explained they were visiting Mrs. West in 24C. "She expecting you?" Pedro asked, his tone suggesting he didn't particularly care. "Birthday surprise," Neil said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Pedro waved them toward the elevators. "Have fun." The elevator was mirrored on all sides, and Neil caught Emma's reflection looking small and nervous. He squeezed her shoulder reassuringly as they ascended, watching the numbers climb. 22, 23, 24. The hallway was quiet, carpeted in plush navy blue. 24C was at the end, corner unit as advertised. Neil had texted Kelvin that morning for a favor. Picking Marissa's apartment lock would be technically breaking and entering, but Kelvin's cousin Jimmy Bird was a locksmith who owed them both favors from a poker game gone wrong. Jimmy had talked Neil through the process of using a pick set, though Neil had felt queasy about it. Now, standing at the door with Emma beside him, he hesitated. "We have a key code, right?" Emma asked. Marissa had texted Neil the code months ago for emergencies. He'd forgotten he had it. Relief washed through him. At least they'd enter legally. He punched in the 6 digits. The lock clicked green. The door opened with a soft whoosh. "Mom," Emma called out, stepping forward. The apartment was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river, furniture that belonged in design magazines, artwork that definitely wasn't purchased at HomeGoods. But Neil barely registered any of it because Emma had gone rigid beside him, her entire body tensing like she'd been electrocuted. "Dad, don't go in." She grabbed his wrist with surprising strength, yanking him backward. "Emma, what?" "Dad, don't." Her voice was shrill, panicked in a way he'd never heard. She was staring into the apartment, her face bone white, and then she was pulling him, dragging him back toward the elevator with desperate urgency. "Emma, stop. What's wrong?" Neil tried to look past her into the apartment, but she positioned herself in front of him, her small frame shaking. "Dad, look at that." She pointed with a trembling hand, not into the apartment, but up. Neil's gaze followed her finger to the ceiling of the entryway, and his world shattered. The ceiling wasn't just a ceiling. A large mirror, approximately 4 by 6 feet, had been professionally installed, angled downward to reflect the view into the bedroom beyond the living room. But it wasn't the mirror itself that made Neil's blood run cold. It was what the mirror revealed. From this angle, he could see into the bedroom, and he could see two figures on the bed. One was unmistakably Marissa, her auburn hair spread across white pillows. The other was a man, his back visible, broad shoulders, dark hair. They weren't asleep. Neil's brain seemed to short-circuit, unable to process what he was seeing while simultaneously processing it too well. The mirror, the angle. This was intentional. This wasn't hidden. It was featured. Emma was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face as she pulled at his arm. "Dad, please, let's go. Please." The sound of his daughter's distress snapped Neil back to the present. He let her pull him away from the door, back into the hallway. He closed the door as quietly as he'd opened it, his hands operating on autopilot while his mind reeled. They stood in the hallway, Emma pressed against his side, both of them breathing hard. Neil's vision seemed to pulse with each heartbeat, rage and grief warring in his chest. "I'm sorry," Emma whispered. "I'm sorry you had to see that. I'm sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for." Neil managed, his voice rough. He crouched down to her level, gripping her shoulders gently. "Nothing. Do you understand? This isn't your fault. Is Mom?" Emma couldn't finish the question. "We're going to figure this out," Neil said, though he had no idea how. "But right now, we're going to leave. We're going to go back to the car, and we're going to drive home, and we're going to take some time to think." "We can't tell her we saw," Emma said suddenly, her eyes wide. "If we tell her, she'll know we know, and she'll lie or leave," or she was spiraling into panic. Hey. Neil pulled her into a hug, his mind racing even as he comforted her. "You're right. We don't tell her yet. We play it smart." Kelvin's words echoed in his mind. Smart men play the long game. They took the elevator down in silence. Pedro didn't look up as they passed. Neil buckled Emma into the car, his movements mechanical. The cake was still in the trunk, the peonies still in the back seat. He'd been so naive. As he pulled out of the parking lot, his phone buzzed. A text from Marissa, "Working late tonight. Hotel, emergency. Love you." Neil stared at the message, then at the waterfront towers receding in his rearview mirror. She wasn't at the hotel. She was with whoever that man was, in that obscene apartment with its ceiling mirrors, living a life Neil hadn't even imagined existed. He deleted the message without responding and pointed the car toward home. Beside him, Emma stared out the window, tears still sliding silently down her cheeks. And Neil West began to plan. Chapter 2. Shadows and Angles. The drive back to Oak Ridge took 4 hours. Neil stopped twice, once for gas, once because Emma needed the bathroom and to splash cold water on her face. They didn't speak about what they'd seen. Instead, they listened to Emma's playlist, Taylor Swift and Olivia Rodrigo, filling the silence with songs about betrayal that felt entirely too appropriate. It was past 9 when they pulled into their driveway. The house looked the same as when they'd left that morning, but everything felt different. Neil unlocked the front door, and Emma went straight to her room without a word. He heard the lock click, then muffled crying. He stood in the kitchen, hands braced on the counter, and let himself feel it for exactly 60 seconds. The rage, the humiliation, the grief of watching his marriage reveal itself as a lie. His knuckles went white. His jaw ached from clenching. Heat flooded his face. 60 seconds. Then he breathed out slowly and put it away. Because Kelvin was right. Anger made you stupid. And Neil wasn't going to be stupid. He knocked on Emma's door. "Sweetheart, can I come in?" A pause, then yeah. She was curled on her bed, still in her clothes, eyes red and puffy. Neil sat on the edge of the bed and took her hand. "I know today was horrible," he said carefully. "And I know you're scared and confused and angry. All of that is okay. But I need you to understand something. We can't let Mom know we went to Riverside." "I know," Emma said miserably. "If she knows, she'll just lie." "Exactly. So we're going to act normal. When she calls, we're going to talk to her like we always do. And while we're doing that, I'm going to figure out what's really going on. Are you going to divorce her?" Emma's voice was small. "I don't know yet," Neil said honestly. But I need to understand the whole situation first. Who that man was. How long this has been happening. What else I don't know. And I can't do that if she knows I'm looking. Emma nodded slowly. Like in chess. When you don't show your strategy until checkmate. Neil felt a fierce pride in his daughter's intelligence, even through the pain. Exactly like that. I won't tell, Emma promised. But Dad, I'm not going to pretend everything's okay with her. I can't. You don't have to, Neil said. You can be distant, just not suspicious. Can you do that? I think so. He hugged her, and they stayed like that for a long moment. Then Neil tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and went downstairs to begin his research. The home office had been Marissa's domain when she worked from home. Now it was mostly storage, but Neil claimed the desk, opened his laptop, and started taking notes. What I know. Marissa in Riverside apartment with unknown man at 3:47 p.m. on Saturday. Ceiling mirror professionally installed, angled toward bedroom. Apartment far more expensive than necessary. Declining contact with family over past 8 months. Texted about working late while clearly not working. What I need to know. Identity of the man. Duration of affair. Financial situation. Where is money really going? Who else knows? What else is she hiding? Neil stared at the list, then opened a browser and started searching. First stop, Marissa's social media. Her Facebook was mostly professional. Photos from hotel events, industry conferences, bland inspirational quotes. But her Instagram, which he hadn't checked in months, told a different story. The posts were public but subtle. Photos from expensive restaurants, tagged with business associates. Pictures from a wine tasting in Napa from 3 months ago. Marissa laughing with a group of people, including a man who appeared in several shots. Tall, dark-haired, maybe mid-40s. The caption, great team building with a Grandview crew. Neil clicked on the tagged accounts. The man's name was Ross Huff. His profile was public, and it was immediately clear who he was. Regional Vice President of Development for Grandview Hotel Group. Marissa's boss. Neil sat back, his jaw tight. An affair with her boss. Classic and cliched, which somehow made it worse. He scrolled through Ross Huff's Instagram. The man lived large. Photos from Vegas, Miami, Dubai. Always first class. Always luxury accommodations. Always with beautiful people. There were several shots with Marissa going back 8 months. Carefully framed to look professional, but with body language that told a different story. The way Ross's hand rested on Marissa's shoulder. The way she leaned into him. The way they looked at each other. Neil's phone buzzed. A text from Marissa. Still working. Don't wait up. Love you both. He stared at it, then at Ross Huff's latest Instagram story from 2 hours ago. A photo of an expensive bottle of wine with the caption Saturday night done right. Neil took a screenshot of everything. The Instagram posts, the timeline, the connections. He created a secure folder on his laptop labeled Project Files and started building a dossier. At midnight, he called Kelvin. It's late, Kelvin answered, his voice groggy. She's sleeping with her boss, Neil said without preamble. Guy named Ross Huff, regional VP at her company. A pause. Then, you went to Riverside. We went. Emma saw something. Ceiling mirror angled to show the bedroom from the entryway. Very intentional design. Jesus Christ. Kelvin was fully awake now. Emma saw them. In the reflection. She pulled me out before I fully processed it, but yeah. How's she doing? About as well as you'd expect when your 10-year-old realizes her mom is living a double life. And you? I'm past anger. I'm in planning mode. Good. Kelvin's tone shifted to businesslike. What do you need? Information. I need to know everything about Ross Huff and what Marissa's really been doing up there. I need to know if money's missing. I need evidence that will hold up in court. I know a guy, Kelvin said. Beverly Dean. She's a PI, works mostly divorce cases. Discreet, thorough, doesn't fuck around. She helped my brother when his wife was hiding assets before filing. I'll text you her number. Thanks. Neil, be careful. If this guy is a regional VP, he's got money and probably connections. Don't underestimate what people will do when their comfortable lives are threatened. Neither should he, Neil said quietly. After hanging up, Neil spent another hour documenting everything he could find online. Ross Huff's employment history. He'd been with Grandview for 12 years. working his way up from hotel manager to his current position. Divorced twice, no kids mentioned. He owned a condo in Riverside, drove a Tesla, and based on LinkedIn, made somewhere north of $250,000 a year. He also found property records. Ross owned that condo outright, no mortgage. But the address for Marissa's apartment, 24C in Waterfront Towers? The unit was leased by Grandview Hotel Group as corporate housing. Neil sat forward. Corporate housing meant it was on the company dime, which meant Ross had likely arranged it. Which meant this affair wasn't just personal. It was facilitated and potentially funded by her employer. This was getting complicated in interesting ways. At 1:30 a.m., exhausted and wired at the same time, Neil went upstairs. He paused at Emma's door, listening. She was asleep, her breathing steady. He continued to his own room. The room he'd shared with Marissa for 10 years, now feeling like a museum of their false history. He didn't sleep much. When he did, he dreamed of mirrors and angles, of his wife's face reflected and distorted, of foundations crumbling beneath his feet. Sunday morning, Emma came down for breakfast, looking hollowed out but determined. "What's the plan?" she asked. Neil poured her orange juice. "I'm going to hire someone to help us figure out what's really happening, and we're going to act totally normal. When Mom calls, you can talk to her or not. But if you do, keep it short and neutral. You're busy with homework, you're tired, whatever feels natural." "What are you going to say?" "That I love her," Neil said, "and that I can't wait until she comes home next weekend." Emma made a face. "That's not acting normal. That's acting stupid." "No," Neil corrected gently. "That's acting strategic. There's a difference." At 10 a.m., Marissa video called. Neil answered, angling the camera away from his face because he didn't trust his expression. Emma sat on the couch, visible in the frame but distant. "Hey." Marissa's face filled the screen, bright and cheerful. She was in her apartment. He could see the expensive furniture in the background. "How's my favorite family?" "Good," Neil said neutrally. "Quiet weekend here." "How's work?" "Exhausting." She sighed dramatically. "The grand reopening is in 3 weeks, and everything's chaos. I barely slept last night." The lie was so smooth, so practiced, that Neil fell cold. "Sounds rough," he said. "You coming home next weekend?" "I'm going to try," Marissa said. "But I might need to push it to the following week. Things are just so crazy here." "Mom forgot it's my game next Saturday," Emma said suddenly, her voice flat. Marissa's face shifted, guilty. "Oh, honey, it's fine," Emma interrupted. "Dad will be there. He always is." "The Barb at home." Marissa looked wounded. "Emma, I'm sorry, I have homework," Emma said, standing abruptly. "Bye, Mom." She left the room. Neil heard her footsteps on the stairs, her door closing. "She's really angry with me," Marissa said quietly. "She misses you," Neil said, which was true and also safe. "I know. I'm trying to make this work, Neil. The money's been incredible. I transferred another $5,000 to our joint savings last week. We're building toward the life we want." "Right," Neil said. "The life we want." They talked for another few minutes before Marissa had to go. "Conference call," she claimed. After she hung up, Neil sat staring at his phone. 5,000 to savings. He opened his banking app and checked their joint account. Sure enough, a transfer from Marissa's personal account 5 days ago. $5,000. But when he checked their credit card statements, which he hadn't done in months, trusting her to manage expenses, his stomach dropped. Charges at luxury boutiques in Riverside. High-end restaurants. A $3,000 transaction at something called Noir Salon and Spa 3 weeks ago. A $1,200 charge at a jewelry store Neil had never heard of. He added it up. Over the past 6 months, Marissa had spent nearly $40,000 on personal expenses from their joint credit card. Far more than the money she'd been transferring to savings. Neil felt the anger trying to resurface and breathed through it. Not yet. He needed more information. He texted the number Kelvin had sent him. "Beverly Dean?" The response came quickly. "That's me. Kelvin said you might reach out. Can you meet today?" "This afternoon." "Where?" "There's a diner called Marlowe's on 6th Street. 2 p.m.? See you there." At 1:45, Neil told Emma he was going to run errands. She looked at him knowingly. Finding out the truth. Working on it. Good, she said. I want to know everything. I'm not a little kid. I know, Neil said. When I have answers, I'll share them. Marlowe's Diner was a local institution, all chrome and red vinyl booths, smelling like coffee and bacon. Beverly Dean was already in a back booth, nursing a coffee and reading something on her phone. She looked up as Neil approached. A black woman in her 50s with graying braids pulled back in a ponytail, sharp eyes that missed nothing, and the kind of confident stillness that came from years of watching people. Mr. West, she extended a hand. Neil, thanks for meeting me. Kelvin's recommendation goes a long way, Beverly said. He told me basic situation, wife working in another city, suspected infidelity. What can you tell me? Neil told her everything. The deteriorating relationship, the surprise visit, the ceiling mirror, Ross Huff, the financial discrepancies. Beverly took notes on a tablet, her expression neutral, but her eyes sharp. When he finished, she sat back. The mirror's interesting. That's not standard affair behavior. That's exhibitionism. Could be a kink thing, could be something else entirely. You said it was angled to show the bedroom from the entry. Perfectly positioned, Neil confirmed. Beverly's jaw tightened. I've seen this before. Not often, but a few times. Hotels, high-end apartments. Sometimes these arrangements aren't just affairs. They're more transactional. What do you mean? I mean, sometimes powerful men set up mistresses in corporate apartments, create little fantasy worlds. But they also sometimes use those apartments for clients, business associates, people they want to impress or influence. The mirror could be for private viewing, or it could be for recording. Neil's blood ran cold. Recording? It's a theory, Beverly said carefully. But if Roshoff is facilitating this setup, I want to know why. Is he just sleeping with your wife? Or is there something bigger? You mentioned financial discrepancies. That's worth digging into. Both hers and his. How long will this take? Depend on what we find. I'll start surveillance tomorrow, photos, video, movement tracking. I'll also run deep financial checks, look into Huff's background, see if there are patterns. Give me a week, and I'll have a preliminary report. Cost: $5,000 retainer, $150 an hour plus expenses after that. Kelvin said you're good for it. Neil thought of the $40,000 Marissa had spent. I'm good for it. One more thing, Beverly said, her eyes meeting his. Once we start pulling this thread, there's no putting it back. If there's more going on, criminal activity, fraud, exploitation, I'm obligated to report certain things. Are you prepared for wherever this leads? Neil thought of Emma's tear-stained face, of Marissa's easy lies, of the mirror reflecting a life he'd never been part of. I'm prepared, he said. Beverly nodded. Then let's get to work. Chapter 3. Foundations. The week that followed was a study in duality. On the surface, Neil maintained his routine, work, Emma's school, and soccer, the mundane rhythms of suburban life. Beneath that surface, he was building a case. Beverly worked fast. By Tuesday, she'd confirmed that Marissa and Ross spent most evenings together at the Waterfront Towers apartment. Sometimes they went to dinner first, always expensive places where Ross paid. Sometimes he arrived directly from work. He usually left around midnight, returning to his own condo across town. They're not particularly careful, Beverly reported over the phone. No disguises, no sneaking. They act like a couple in public. Either they're arrogant, or they think no one who matters will see. What about the hotel? Are they careful there? They maintain professionalism at work from what I can see. But I've got my eye on something else. The apartment isn't just used by them. Neil sat forward. What do you mean? 3 nights in the past week. Other people have used the apartment. Different men, always well-dressed, always arriving after Marissa leaves. They're let in by building staff like they're expected. They stay for a few hours, then leave. Ross shows up separately on those nights, never overlapping. Who are they? Working on it. I've got photos, running them through databases now. But Neil? This is looking less like a simple affair, and more like Ross is using that apartment for multiple purposes. What purposes? That's what I'm going to find out. By Wednesday, Beverly had a name for one of the men, Darren Pacheco, a commercial real estate developer with projects throughout the region. He'd been in the apartment Monday night from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. I pulled property records, Beverly said. Pacheco has purchased 3 properties from developers who then partnered with Grandview Hotels in the past 2 years. He's also been photographed at charity events with Ross Huff. They run in the same circles. So Ross is, what? Using Marissa's apartment to wine and dine business contacts. That would be the generous interpretation. The less generous one is that he's using it for something Grandview wouldn't want to know about. On Thursday, Beverly sent Neil a photo that made his stomach turn. It was a screenshot from what appeared to be a high-end dating app called Elite Connections, an app Neil had never heard of. The profile showed Marissa, using a different name, Marissa Sterling. The photos were professionally done, glamorous. The bio read, sophisticated companion for discerning gentlemen. Discretion assured. Neil stared at his phone in his parked car. He'd been about to pick up Emma from soccer and felt the world tilt. I need you to call me, he texted Beverly. She called immediately. You saw the profile. What is this? Neil's voice was tight. Elite Connections is an escort service masquerading as a dating app. High-end clients, high-end providers. It's technically legal. They're careful about the wording, but we both know what it really is. Marissa is, he couldn't say it. I don't know yet if she's actively meeting clients through this, Beverly said quickly. The profile could be inactive, could be something Ross set up without her knowledge, could be a lot of things. But we need to consider the possibility that Ross has arranged something here, either with Marissa's participation or using her. Why would she agree to this? Neil's voice broke slightly. She makes good money. We're not desperate. Money, coercion, manipulation could be anything. Some of these high-end operations groom women slowly, normalize behavior gradually. Start with expensive gifts and dinners. Move to entertaining clients. Make it feel glamorous rather than transactional. By the time they realize what they're doing, they're in too deep. Neil pressed his palm to his forehead. You said you found Darren Pacheco in the apartment. Do you think? I think there's a pattern developing that we need to understand fully before drawing conclusions. I'm going to do more digging, financial records, communications, if I can access them legally, pattern analysis. Give me a few more days. Emma knocked on the car window, making Neil jump. Dad? Practice is over. I have to go, he told Beverly. Stay calm. We'll figure this out. Emma climbed in, sweaty and flushed from practice. You okay? You look weird. Just work stuff, Neil lied. How was practice? Coach said I should try for striker instead of midfield. She buckled her seatbelt. Did that investigator find out who Mom was with? Neil hesitated. She's still gathering information. You'll tell me when you know, right? You promised. I promised to share answers, not theories. When I have solid facts, you'll know them. Emma studied him. It's bad, isn't it? Worse than just Mom having an affair. His daughter was too smart for her own good. I don't know yet, Neil said honestly. But yeah, it might be more complicated than I thought. That night, after Emma went to bed, Neil did something he'd been avoiding. He accessed Marissa's laptop. She'd left it at home when she moved to Riverside, saying she had a work computer there. It had been sitting in their home office and used for months. He knew her password. They'd never hidden things from each other, or so he'd thought. The laptop booted up slowly, operating system out of date. Neil opened her email. The inbox was mostly junk mail and old work correspondence from before her Grandview job. But when he checked her deleted items folder, carefully restored emails told a different story. Emails from Ross Huff, starting 9 months ago. The early ones were innocuous. Great meeting today. Let me know if you need anything to settle in. But around month 2, they shifted. You looked incredible at dinner last night. Can't stop thinking about you. This thing between us. I know it's complicated, but I've never felt this way. I've arranged for upgraded housing. You deserve better than that cramped studio. Consider it an early birthday gift. The emails became increasingly intimate, increasingly explicit. Neil forced himself to read them, cataloging details even as his heart hammered. Then, for months ago, the tone changed again. There's a client dinner next Tuesday. He's a big deal, and I need you there. With a red dress. You know how this works. Pacheco loved meeting you. He's signing the contract next week. You're amazing at this. Another successful evening. Your cut is in the account we discussed. You've earned every penny. Neil sat back, his hands shaking. This wasn't just an affair. Marissa was participating in something, entertaining Ross's clients, being compensated for it. Whether she'd been manipulated into it or gone willingly, she was involved. He found the account we discussed in another email, a reference to a separate bank account at a financial institution Neil didn't recognize. He wrote down the account number and bank name. Beverly could investigate further. The final email in the deleted folder was from 3 weeks ago. M. Keep the profile active. The right opportunities are worth the wait. You're too good at this to waste. R. So the Elite Connections profile was real, active, and something Ross was managing. Using Marissa as a high-end escort for business purposes, likely pocketing a percentage while she received her cut. Neil closed the laptop, his mind racing. This changed everything. This wasn't just about divorce and custody. This was potentially criminal. Ross was using his position at Grandview to facilitate prostitution, even if high-end and technically deniable. Marissa was complicit. The corporate housing was probably being used as the venue. His phone buzzed. A text from Marissa. Miss you. Coming home this Saturday after all. Emma's game is at 10, right? Neil stared at the text. She was coming home. The woman who'd been living a double life, who'd been entertaining her boss's clients in a corporate apartment, who'd lied about working late while she did God knows what. She was coming home to play suburban mom for a weekend. The rage he'd been controlling threatened to break through. But then Kelvin's words echoed again. Smart men play the long game. He texted back, that's great. Emma will be thrilled. Game's at 10, yeah. See you Saturday. Then he called Beverly. I've got more, he said when she answered. A lot more. And it's worse than we thought. He told her everything. The emails, the bank account, the explicit references to clients and compensation. Beverly listened without interrupting. Jesus, she said when he finished. This is a whole operation. Ross has set this up systematically. Corporate housing as the venue. Marissa as one of the providers, probably keeping his own involvement at arm's length enough to claim deniability if anyone asks questions. What do I do? First, we document everything. I'll get evidence of the financial flows, the client meetings, the full scope of the operation. Then we decide who needs to know. Police, Grandview corporate, attorneys. But Neil, this is bigger than your marriage. If we expose this, there are going to be consequences for a lot of people. Good, Neil said coldly. There should be. I'm with you. But before we blow this up, let's make sure we have irrefutable evidence. These people have money and lawyers. We do this right, or we don't do it all. How long? Marissa's coming home this weekend? Saturday. Perfect. I'll use that time to do a thorough sweep of the apartment. Cameras, financial documents, anything I can legally access. By Monday, I'll have a complete picture. Then we decide how to proceed. After hanging up, Neil went to Emma's room. She was still awake, reading by the soft glow of her bedside lamp. Can't sleep? He asked from the doorway. Thinking too much. She set down her book. Mom's coming home this weekend? She texted. She wants to make your game. Emma's face was unreadable. Do I have to pretend everything's okay? You have to pretend you don't know about the apartment, Neil said carefully. But you don't have to pretend to be happy. You can be distant. You can be upset about her missing stuff. That's all legitimate. Good, because I don't think I can act happy. Neil sat on the edge of her bed. There might be some difficult things coming. Changes. Stuff involving lawyers and maybe other people too. I want you to know that whatever happens, you and I are solid. You're my priority. Always. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Are you going to tell me what you found out? Not yet. Soon. But it's more complicated than I thought. I need to make sure I handle it right. To protect me? To protect both of us. He kissed her forehead. Try to sleep. We got soccer in the morning. Friday passed in a blur of work and preparation. Neil made sure the house was clean, groceries stocked, everything exactly as Marissa would expect. He moved through the motions mechanically, his mind constantly calculating next steps. Beverly texted updates throughout the day, got access to the financial accounts. Following the money trail, Darren Pacheco visited the apartment again last night. Got video. This operation's been running for at least 6 months. Multiple clients. Substantial money involved. By Friday night, Neil had made his decision. He wasn't just going to divorce Marissa. He was going to dismantle the entire thing. Expose Ross, protect any other women who might be involved, ensure there were real consequences for what they'd built. But first, he was going to let Marissa come home and play house for one last weekend. Because smart men played the long game. And Neil West's game was just beginning. Chapter 4, The Performance. Saturday morning arrived with the crisp clarity of autumn. Neil woke at 6, watched the sun rise through the bedroom window, and rehearsed his performance. He needed to be the loving husband, welcoming his wife home, attentive but not overeager, warm but not suspicious. It was the role he'd played for 18 months, believing it was real. Now it was just stagecraft. Emma was already awake when he checked on her, dressed in her soccer uniform, braiding her hair with mechanical precision. "Ready for the game?" Neil asked from the doorway. Ready for everything. Her jaw was set in a way that reminded him of himself. 10 years old, and already learning that sometimes you had to wear a mask. "Remember, I know, Dad. Act normal. Don't let her know we know." Emma finished her braid and secured it with an elastic. "When is she getting here?" She said she'd arrive around 9:30. Enough time to get to the field by 10. "Great." Emma's voice was flat. "Can't wait." They had breakfast in near silence. Eggs and toast, orange juice, the comfortable quiet of a Saturday morning that felt anything but comfortable. At 9, Neil's phone buzzed with a text from Marissa, leaving Riverside now. "So excited to see you both." Neil responded, "Drive safe. We'll be ready. I'm with you. But before we blow this up, let's make sure we have irrefutable evidence. These people have money and lawyers. We do this right, or we don't do it all." "How long?" "Marissa's coming home this weekend." "Saturday." "Perfect. I'll use that time to do a thorough sweep of the apartment. Cameras, financial documents, anything I can legally access. By Monday, I'll have a complete picture. Then we decide how to proceed." After hanging up, Neil went to Emma's room. She was still awake, reading by the soft glow of her bedside lamp. "Can't sleep?" he asked from the doorway. "Thinking too much." She set down her book. "Mom's coming home this weekend." She texted, "She wants to make your game." Emma's face was unreadable. "Do I have to pretend everything's okay?" "You have to pretend you don't know about the apartment," Neil said carefully. "But you don't have to pretend to be happy. You could be distant. You could be upset about her missing stuff. That's all legitimate." "Good, because I don't think I can act happy." Neil sat on the edge of her bed. There might be some difficult things coming. Changes. Stuff involving lawyers and maybe other people too. I want you to know that whatever happens, you and I are solid. You're my priority. Always." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Are you going to tell me what you found out?" "Not yet. Soon. But it's more complicated than I thought. I need to make sure I handle it right. To protect me? To protect both of us." He kissed her forehead. "Try to sleep. We've got soccer in the morning." Friday passed in a blur of work and preparation. Neil made sure the house was clean, groceries stocked, everything exactly as Marissa would expect. He moved through the motions mechanically, his mind constantly calculating next steps. Beverly texted updates throughout the day, got access to the financial accounts. Following the money trail, Darren Pacheco visited the apartment again last night. Got video. This operation's been running for at least 6 months. Multiple clients. Substantial money involved. By Friday night, Neil had made his decision. He wasn't just going to divorce Marissa. He was going to dismantle the entire thing. Expose Ross, protect any other women who might be involved, ensure there were real consequences for what they'd built. But first, he was going to let Marissa come home and play house for one last weekend. Because smart men played the long game. And Neil West's game was just beginning. Chapter 4, The Performance. Saturday morning arrived with the crisp clarity of autumn. Neil woke at 6, watched the sun rise through the bedroom window, and rehearsed his performance. He needed to be the loving husband welcoming his wife home, attentive but not overeager, warm but not suspicious. It was the role he'd played for 18 months, believing it was real. Now it was just stagecraft. Emma was already awake when he checked on her, dressed in her soccer uniform, braiding her hair with mechanical precision. "Ready for the game?" Neil asked from the doorway. Ready for everything. Her jaw was set in a way that reminded him of himself. 10 years old, and already learning that sometimes you had to wear a mask. Remember, I know, Dad. Act normal. Don't let her know we know. Emma finished her braid and secured it with an elastic. When's she getting here? She said she'd arrive around 9:30. Enough time to get to the field by 10. Great. Emma's voice was flat. Can't wait. They had breakfast in near silence. Eggs and toast, orange juice, the comfortable quiet of a Saturday morning that felt anything but comfortable. At 9, Neil's phone buzzed with a text from Marissa, leaving Riverside now. So excited to see you both. Neil responded, drive safe. We'll be ready. Beverly had sent him a message at 7 a.m. Apartment sweep complete. You want to see this? Call me after Marissa leaves on Monday. Whatever she'd found could wait. Right now, Neil had to focus on maintaining the illusion. Marissa arrived at 9:45, her Audi pulling into the driveway with a cheerful honk. Neil watched from the window as she emerged. Auburn hair perfectly styled, designer sunglasses, expensive casual wear that probably cost more than his monthly car payment. She looked radiant, successful, like a woman who had everything together. She had no idea she was walking into a trap. They're here, Neil called to Emma. Emma came downstairs slowly, deliberately. When Marissa opened the front door with her key, calling out, I'm home, Emma stood in the living room, arms crossed. Hey, sweetheart. Marissa dropped her overnight bag and approached Emma for a hug. Emma accepted it stiffly, not returning the embrace. Hi, Mom. Marissa pulled back, her smile faltering. Still mad at me? You missed a lot, Emma said simply. And you forgot my birthday. I know, I'm the worst. But I'm here now, and I'm going to make it up to you. Marissa turned to Neil, who'd positioned himself in the kitchen doorway. Hey, you. She crossed him, and Neil let her kiss him, tasting expensive lipstick and betrayal. When she pulled back, she was searching his face. You okay? You seem tense. Just tired, Neil said easily. Work's been busy, but it's good to have you home. It's good to be home. Marissa looked around the house. Their house, which she'd barely visited in months. I miss this place. Liar, Neil thought. You've been living in a luxury apartment with ceiling mirrors, entertaining your boss's clients, and you've missed nothing. We should head to the field soon, Emma said, checking the time on her phone. Warm-ups start at 9:45. Right, yes. Marissa grabbed her purse. Let's go watch our star player. The soccer field was a 15-minute drive, part of the town's sports complex. It was a perfect fall morning. Blue sky, leaves turning golden red, the smell of cut grass and autumn air. Other families were already setting up folding chairs on the sidelines, kids warming up on the field. Emma's team, the Oak Ridge Eagles, was stretching near their bench. Neil helped Emma with her gear, while Marissa chatted with other parents, sliding seamlessly back into the role of soccer mom. He watched her laugh and smile, saw how effortlessly she performed, and felt cold admiration for her skill. She'd been doing this for months, living one life in Riverside, another life here, switching between them without apparent strain. You've got this, Neil told Emma, adjusting her shin guards. Remember what we practiced? Find the space, use your speed. I will. Emma glanced at Marissa, then back to Neil. Thanks for always being here. The words hit harder than she probably intended. Neil squeezed her shoulder. Always. The game started at 10 sharp. Emma played striker, as her coach had suggested, and she was brilliant. She scored 2 goals in the first half, her small frame darting between defenders with the kind of strategic thinking Neil had taught her. On the sidelines, Marissa cheered loudly, recording on her phone, being the perfect proud mom. During halftime, she turned to Neil. She's gotten so good, and so tall. When did she get tall? Kids grow, Neil said neutrally, especially when you don't see them for weeks at a time. Marissa's smile tightened. I know I've been absent, but this job, Neil, the money I'm making is setting us up for life. Is it? Neil kept his eyes on the field, because from where I'm sitting, money doesn't make up for being absent. That's not fair, isn't it? He finally looked at her. Emma needed you for her birthday. She needs you at games and school events. She needs her mom, not financial transfers. Marissa's eyes welled up. I'm trying to do what's best for all of us. Are you? Neil let the question hang there, loaded with meaning she couldn't possibly understand. Or are you doing what's best for you? Neil. Second half starting, he said, turning back to the field. The Eagles won 4-2, with Emma scoring one more goal in the final minutes. The team celebrated, parents congratulated each other, and Marissa took 100 photos, her earlier tension masked by maternal pride. They went out for lunch afterward. Emma's choice, a pizza place she loved. Marissa insisted on sitting next to Emma in the booth, peppering her with questions about school, friends, her favorite subjects. Emma answered in monosyllables, her responses polite but cold. Neil watched the dynamic, saw Marissa trying desperately to reconnect, and Emma building walls with every word. It would have broken his heart if his heart wasn't already shattered. Back home, Marissa tried to initiate intimacy. "I've missed you," she said in their bedroom, her hand on his chest. Neil felt revulsion, but forced himself to be calm. "I'm exhausted. Long week, the game, lunch. Can we rain check?" Her face fell. "We haven't. It's been over a month." "I know. I'm sorry. Tomorrow?" She nodded, hurt and confused, and Neil felt a grim satisfaction. Let her feel some fraction of what he'd felt. That evening, they ordered Chinese food and watched a movie, a family tradition from before everything fell apart. Emma sat on the opposite end of the couch from Marissa, and when Marissa tried to put her arm around her, Emma shifted away. Come on," Marissa pleaded. "Don't be like this." "Like what?" Emma's voice was ice. "Like someone whose mom forgot her birthday and disappeared for months?" "I didn't forget. I was late, yes, but I didn't forget. You forgot to call. You forgot I existed." Emma stood abruptly. "I'm going to my room." She left. Marissa looked at Neil helplessly. "She hates me." "She's hurt," Neil corrected. "There's a difference." "What do I do?" "Be present. Be consistent. Stop choosing work over her." He paused. "Stop choosing whatever else you're doing in Riverside over her." Marissa's face went pale. "What does that mean?" "It means," Neil said carefully, "that I think there's more to your time up there than just work." And Emma senses it too. Kids are perceptive. "There's nothing. I work constantly, Neil. The hotel, the renovation, the management issues." "Okay," Neil interrupted. He didn't want her defensive lies. Not yet. "Okay, then prove it. Be here more. Come home every weekend like you promised originally. Make Emma your priority." "I will," Marissa said quickly. "I promise I will. This job, it's almost over. Another 3 months, and they'll hire a permanent director for the Riverside property. Then I can work from home again or take a different role." 3 more months. 3 months, Neil echoed. 3 months she'd never have, because he was going to detonate her life long before that. Sunday was quieter. Marissa made pancakes for breakfast, attempted normal conversation, tried to rebuild bridges Emma wasn't ready to walk across. Neil maintained his role, present but distant, supportive but wary. He let Marissa interpret his behavior as stress and exhaustion rather than knowledge and strategy. Beverly texted at noon. "Available Monday afternoon for full debrief? What I found changes the game." Neil responded, "I'll come by your office at 2 p.m. At 3 o'clock, Marissa's phone buzzed with a call. She glanced at the screen, and Neil saw her entire body tense. "I need to take this," she said, standing quickly. "Work emergency." She went out to the backyard, and Neil watched through the window as she paced, her free hand gesturing animatedly. He couldn't hear the words, but her body language screamed stress and frustration. When she came back inside 10 minutes later, her face was tight. "I have to go back. Now." Neil let surprise color his voice. "You just got here. There's a major issue at the hotel. A contractor screwed up the ballroom renovation, and we have an event scheduled for Wednesday. I have to manage the fix." She was already gathering her things. "I'm so sorry. I wanted this weekend to be perfect." "It's fine," Emma said from the stairs, her voice dripping with bitter resignation. "We're used to it." "Emma, just go, Mom. We know where we rank." Marissa looked devastated, torn between defending herself and rushing back to Riverside. Neil almost felt bad for her. "Almost. I'll make it up to you both," she said. "I promise." "Okay," Neil said simply. "Drive safe." Marissa left at 4, her car disappearing down the street with a final apologetic wave. The moment she was gone, Emma turned to Neil. That wasn't a work call. No, Neil agreed. Probably wasn't. Are you going to follow her? Is that investigator following her? Beverly's on it, Neil confirmed. And tomorrow, I'm going to find out everything. Good. Emma's young face was hard with determination. I want them to pay, Dad. All of them. They will, Neil promised. But we do this smart. We build the case, we gather the evidence, and then we strike when they can't see it coming. Can you be patient a little longer? If it means they get what's coming, I could be patient forever. Neil pulled his daughter into a hug, this fierce, brilliant girl who'd had to grow up too fast, and swore to himself that before this was over, everyone responsible for breaking her childhood would face consequences. That night, he drafted an email to Beverly. She left early, claimed work emergency. Whatever you found, I'm ready to hear it. Time to plan the endgame. Monday morning couldn't come fast enough. Chapter 5. The Evidence. Beverly Dean's office was in a nondescript building in downtown Oak Ridge, sandwiched between a bail bondsman and a tax attorney. The waiting room smelled like stale coffee and old carpet, with outdated magazines scattered on a side table and a receptionist who barely looked up when Neil arrived. She's expecting you, the receptionist said, waving toward a door at the back. Beverly's office was small but efficient, desk covered with monitors and files, walls lined with filing cabinets, a whiteboard covered in what looked like a complex web of connections. Beverly herself sat behind the desk, reading glasses perched on her nose, looking more like a professor than a private investigator. Neil, close the door, she said without preamble. He did, settling into the chair across from her desk. You said what you found changes the game. It does. Beverly opened a folder and slid it across the desk. Let's start with the apartment. I got in Friday night. Building staff is easy to bribe if you flash enough cash and claim your corporate security doing a random inspection. What I found confirms our worst theories. The folder contained photos. Neil opened it and felt his stomach drop. The ceiling mirror in the entryway was just the first of several. The bedroom had another large mirror above the bed. The bathroom had strategic mirror placements. But worse than the mirrors were the cameras, small, professionally installed, hidden in smoke detectors, picture frames, and air vents. 6 cameras total, Beverly said. Bedroom, bathroom, living room. All recording to a central server that's likely off-site. Whoever set this up wasn't being subtle. They wanted comprehensive coverage. Ross, Neil said through gritted teeth. Almost certainly. But here's where it gets interesting. Beverly pulled up a file on her computer, turning the monitor so Neil could see. I traced the financial accounts you found in Marissa's emails. Over the past 6 months, she's received $127,000 in deposit from a shell company called Summit Hospitality Consulting. Neil's eyes widened. $127,000? Summit Hospitality is registered in Delaware, owned by another shell company, which is ultimately owned by, surprise, Ross Huff. He's using it to pay Marissa and probably others for consulting services. It's a layer of deniability if anyone asks questions. Others. Beverly pulled up another document. I found 2 more profiles on Elite Connections linked to the same payment structure. Different women, same setup. One is named Christy Short, works as a hospitality coordinator for Grandview Hotels. The other is Brooke Willis, listed as a client relations specialist. Both are on Grandview's payroll in legitimate-looking positions. Both have received payments from Summit Hospitality. Both have been photographed with Ross Huff at company events. He's running an entire operation, Neil said slowly, his mind racing. Using Grandview resources, company apartments, corporate positions as cover. Exactly. And the clients. Beverly pulled up more photos. I've identified 7 men who visited the apartment in the past 2 weeks. All have business connections to Ross or Grandview. Darren Pacheco is one. There's also Tyrone Potter, who owns a construction company that's done work for 4 Grandview properties. Wilson Tanner, who sits on the City Planning Commission and approved Grandview's last 3 development projects. Elmer Henry, a banker who's financed Grandview acquisitions. Neil stared at the photos. Successful-looking men in their 40s and 50s, arriving at the apartment in expensive cars, entering with the confidence of people who knew they were expected. This isn't just prostitution. This is corporate corruption. He's using these women to influence business deals. Bingo. And it's probably been going on for years in different cities, different properties. Riverside is just the current operation. The cameras suggest he's also creating insurance, blackmail material if any of these men ever become problems. Jesus Christ. Neil leaned back in his chair. Marissa, is she doing this willingly? Beverly's expression softened slightly. That's the question, isn't it? I've read through every communication I could access. Initially, it looks like she and Ross started as a genuine affair. But around month 3, he started introducing her to his networking strategy. The emails use language that suggests he positioned it as helping her career, impressing important clients, being a team player. Classic grooming language. But she took the money. She took the money, Beverly agreed. Whether she understood what she was really doing or whether Ross manipulated her into normalizing it gradually, I can't say definitively. But Neil, she participated for 6 months. She set up an escort profile. She entertained multiple men. At some point, willing or manipulated, she made choices. Neil felt the familiar rage, trying to surface, and pushed it down. What's our next move? Beverly leaned forward, her eyes sharp. We have options. Option 1. We take this to the police. What Ross is doing is probably criminal, fraud, possibly pandering, corporate malfeasance at minimum. But that's messy, slow, and Marissa would be implicated too. Option 2. We take it to Grandview Corporate. Ross is exposing them to massive liability. If we present this to their legal department or board of directors, they'll bury him to protect the company. Ross gets fired, possibly sued, definitely blacklisted from the industry. But again, Marissa's name comes up. Option 3. Neil asked, though he suspected he knew where this was going. Beverly smiled thinly. Option 3. We use what we know strategically. We don't just expose Ross. We dismantle his entire operation, discredit him professionally and personally, ensure he faces maximum consequences while protecting you and Emma from the fallout. That requires more planning, more precision, but the results are more satisfying. I want option 3, Neil said immediately, but I also want Marissa to face consequences. She doesn't get to walk away clean. Agreed. But those consequences should be on your terms. Divorce, custody, financial settlement that favors you. Not criminal charges that make Emma's mother a convicted felon. Neil saw the wisdom in this. Emma didn't need her mother in prison. She needed her father in control of the situation. What do you need from me? He asked. First, I need you to keep playing the unknowing husband for at least another week. Marissa can't suspect we're onto her. Second, I'm going to make contact with someone inside Grandview Corporate, someone who'd want to know what Ross is doing with company resources. Third, we're going to need legal help. I know an attorney, Edmund Bond, who specializes in complex divorces and corporate malfeasance. He's expensive but brilliant. Set up the meeting with Bond. What else? I'm going to coordinate with someone who can handle the technical side, hacking Ross's server where the camera footage is stored, documenting the full extent of his operation. I have a contact, Kelvin's cousin who? Jimmy Bird, Neil interrupted. The locksmith who also has other skills. Beverly raised an eyebrow. Kelvin told you about him. Kelvin mentioned he's good at accessing things people want kept private. He is. I'll bring him in. Between the two of us, we'll have everything Ross has tried to hide. Then we move. Neil nodded slowly, feeling the pieces falling into place. Timeline, 2 weeks. By then, we'll have complete documentation, corporate allies in place, legal strategy prepared. Then we trigger everything simultaneously. Expose Ross to Grandview Corporate, file for divorce with evidence that destroys any sympathy for Marissa, ensure all his clients know their activities have been recorded and could be released. Mutually assured destruction, Neil said. More like surgical strike. We hit every pressure point at once. Ross loses everything. Job, reputation, potentially facing criminal charges. Marissa loses her job, her relationship with Ross, and any moral high ground in the divorce. You get full custody, favorable financial settlement, and the satisfaction of watching them burn. It was elegant. It was ruthless. It was exactly what Neil wanted. Do it, he said. All of it. Beverly extended her hand. Then let's get to work. Neil shook it, feeling something dark and determined settle in his chest. For months, he'd been the unknowing victim. Now he was becoming something else entirely, an architect of consequences. One more thing, Beverly said as Neil stood to leave. When this goes down, it's going to be ugly. Marissa will likely try to blame you, to spin herself as the victim. Ross will lawyer up and fight. There will be media attention if the Grandview angle goes public. You need to be prepared for scorched earth. I'm prepared, Neil said. They've already burned everything that mattered. Now I'm returning the favor. Chapter 6, The Groundwork. The next 10 days were a masterclass in control deception. Neil maintained his routine with machine-like precision. Morning runs where he processed strategy, workdays where he designed earthquake-resistant structures while planning to bring down Marissa and Ross's corrupt empire. Evenings with Emma, where he reassured her that justice was coming. Marissa called every other night, their conversations a study in surface-level normalcy. She complained about work stress, asked about Emma's schoolwork, made vague promises about coming home soon. Neil responded with carefully calibrated warmth. Not so enthusiastic that she'd suspect anything, not so cold that she'd sense danger. How's the hotel renovation going? He asked during one call, injecting genuine curiosity into his voice. Finally getting somewhere, Marissa said, sounding tired. The ballroom's back on track. Grand reopening gala is next Friday. Huge event, lots of VIPs. If it goes well, my job here might actually be done soon. That's great, Neil said, knowing that by next Friday, Marissa's job would be obliterated regardless of how the gala went. We miss you. I miss you both too. So much. Neil, I know things have been strained, but I swear once this is over, I'm going to make everything right. I believe you, Neil lied smoothly. We'll make it work. After she hung up, Emma emerged from the shadows of the hallway where she'd been listening. She sounds so normal. That's what makes her dangerous, Neil said. She's good at pretending. So are you now. Emma's observation wasn't judgmental, just factual. Learn from the best, Neil said dryly. Beverly worked methodically, her updates arriving via encrypted messages every few days. Day 3, Jimmy accessed Ross's server. Video archive goes back 18 months. Multiple women, multiple clients. Evidence of coercion in some cases. Day 5, made contact with Grandview's VP of Legal, Margaret Schultz. She's horrified and ready to move once we provide full documentation. Day 7, attorney Edmund Bond reviewed materials. He says we have an ironclad divorce case with evidence that ensures favorable custody and financial arrangements. Day 9, identified Ross's financial accounts. He's skimming money from Grandview expenses and the Summit hospitality payments. Corporate fraud on top of everything else. On day 10, Beverly requested a meeting at her office. Neil arrived to find her with 2 other people. Jimmy Bird, a wiry man in his 30s with nervous energy and laptop under his arm, and Edmund Bond, a silver-haired attorney in his 50s who radiated calculated intelligence. Let's talk in-game, Beverly said once everyone was settled. Edmund spoke first, his voice measured and confident. Neil, I've reviewed all evidence Beverly provided. For the divorce, you have overwhelming proof of adultery, financial misconduct, and behavior inconsistent with being a primary caregiver. California is a no-fault divorce state, but this evidence ensures you get favorable terms, primary physical custody of Emma, equitable division of assets that account for money Marissa misappropriated, and alimony unlikely given her income and behavior. How fast can we move? Neil asked. I can file papers tomorrow if you authorize it. But Beverly suggested we coordinate timing with the corporate exposure. Correct, Beverly said. Here's the sequence. This Friday is Grandview's gala, Ross's big showcase event. We let that go forward. Saturday morning, 3 things happen simultaneously. 1. Margaret Schultz at Grandview receives a comprehensive dossier on Ross's activities, supported by video evidence, financial records, and witness statements from the building's staff Jimmy and I interviewed. 2. Edmund files your divorce papers with supporting evidence. 3. Selected media outlets receive anonymous tips about a developing story involving Grandview Hotels and executive misconduct. The gala is a success, and then Ross's world detonates overnight, Neil said slowly. He won't see it coming. Even better, Jimmy interjected, his voice quick and staccato. I've got access to his email and phone. We can track his movements, know when he's most vulnerable. I also found his insurance policy. He's been skimming video files of the most compromising client encounters onto a personal encrypted drive, probably planning to use them as leverage or blackmail. We can leak those to his clients as a warning that their activities aren't as private as they thought. Mutually assured destruction, Edmund noted. The clients won't press charges or make noise because they're implicated too. It contains the scandal while ensuring maximum damage to Ross. What about Marissa? Neil asked. What happens to her? She'll be fired immediately, Beverly said. Grandview won't keep her once Ross's operation is exposed. She's too connected to it. The divorce filing happens the same day, so she'll be dealing with career implosion and marital dissolution simultaneously. And Ross will likely throw her under the bus to save himself, claiming she initiated everything or acted independently. She did participate, Neil said, his voice hard, but he manipulated her into it. Which is why we're not pushing for criminal charges against her, Edmund said. The divorce evidence is enough. She loses her marriage, her job, her reputation, and most importantly, she loses primary access to Emma. But she doesn't go to prison. Neil considered this. Part of him wanted maximum punishment for Marissa. But Emma's words echoed. I want them to pay. Not her. Them. His daughter's rage was directed at the situation, not solely at her mother. Destroying Marissa completely wouldn't help Emma. It would just traumatize her further. Okay, Neil said. We focus primary fire on Ross. Marissa faces natural consequences, job loss, divorce, reduced custody, but we don't actively destroy her beyond that. Smart, Beverly said. Now logistics. Neil, you need to act completely normal this week. Don't change routines. Don't hint at anything. Friday night, be home with Emma like always. Saturday morning at 9 a.m., Edmund files the papers and has Marissa serve at the Riverside apartment. At the same moment, Margaret Schultz convenes an emergency board meeting to address the Ross situation. By noon, this is all in motion. One more thing, Jimmy said, opening his laptop. Ross has been in contact with someone named Darren Monroe, another Grandview executive in their Seattle office. Based on communications, Monroe's been facilitating similar operations up there. This isn't just Riverside, it's a network. When we expose Ross, we should also hand over evidence about Monroe. Clean house completely. Agreed, Beverly said. We hand Grandview everything and let their legal department handle the fallout. Our job is Neil's situation, but we might as well burn down the whole operation. They spent another hour going over details. Who would deliver what information when backup plans if anything went wrong, coordinating the media tips to ensure maximum impact without exposing Beverly or Jimmy as sources. Edmund drafted the divorce filing right there, Neil reviewing and signing documents that would legally end his marriage. Walking out of Beverly's office that afternoon, Neil felt a strange calm. Everything was in place. The trap was set. In 5 days, the architecture he'd built, the evidence, the coordination, the precise timing would execute perfectly. He texted Marissa. Emma's soccer practice got canceled for weather. Want a video call her tonight? Marissa responded immediately. Yes. Miss her so much. 7 p.m.? Perfect. That evening, Emma sat on the couch with Neil's phone, video chatting with Marissa. Neil stayed in the background, listening to his wife ask their daughter about school, about friends, about weekend plans. Mom, can I ask you something? Emma said suddenly, her voice serious. Of course, honey. Anything. Are you happy up there? In Riverside. Marissa's face on the screen showed surprise. Happy? It's complicated, Em. The work is stressful, but it's important But are you happy? Emma interrupted. Or are you just pretending? There was a long pause. Neil could see Marissa's expression shifting. Guilt, defensiveness, uncertainty. I'm trying to build something for our family, Marissa finally said. Sometimes that means sacrificing happiness in the short term for security in the long term. That sounds like something an adult says when they don't want to admit they made a mistake, Emma said quietly. Emma, I'm going to bed. Good night, Mom. Emma ended the call before Marissa could respond. She handed the phone back to Neil, her face unreadable. That was brutal, Neil said, not unkindly. She's been lying to us for months, Emma said. She doesn't get easy conversations anymore. Neil hugged his daughter, this fierce, brilliant, wounded girl, and knew he was doing the right thing. Not just for himself, but for her. Friday arrived with the weight of an approaching storm. Neil went through his day normally. Work, lunch with Kelvin where he provided vague updates. Everything's happening soon. Picking Emma up from school. That evening, he and Emma ordered pizza and watched a movie, a normal Friday night. Meanwhile, 3 hours north in Riverside, Marissa was at the Grandview Hotel's grand reopening gala. Neil tracked it through social media. Instagram stories showing the renovated ballroom, elegantly dressed guests, champagne towers, Marissa in a stunning black dress, Ross Huff in a tuxedo playing the role of successful executive. The event looked flawless, the culmination of 18 months of work. It was also the high point before the fall. Neil received a text from Beverly at 10 p.m. Everything's in position. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., we execute. Sleep well. Tomorrow your new life starts. He didn't sleep well. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how different everything would be in 24 hours. Marissa would be served with divorce papers. Ross would be facing termination and possible criminal investigation. The operation they built would be exposed and dismantled, and Neil and Emma would be free. At 6 a.m. Saturday, Neil woke to his alarm. He showered, made coffee, and checked his phone. Edmund had texted at 5 a.m., papers filed. Process server en route to Riverside. ETA 9 a.m. Beverly at 6:30 a.m. Margaret Schultz convening emergency board meeting at 9:30 a.m. Dossier delivered to her office this morning. Jimmy at 7 a.m. Media tips sent. Expect first inquiries to Grandview by midday. Everything was in motion. Emma came downstairs at 7:30, finding Neil in the kitchen. Is it happening? It's happening, Neil confirmed. Good. Emma poured herself cereal, her movements deliberate. What do? We wait, Neil said, and we be ready for whatever comes next. At 9:02 a.m., Neil's phone rang. Marissa's number. He let it ring Neil. Marissa's voice was shaking. Neil, someone just served me with divorce papers. What? Why? I don't understand. Neil took a breath, and when he spoke, his voice was cold and clear. Because I know everything, Marissa. The apartment, Ross, the clients, the money, all of it. It's over. There was a shocked silence on the other end. Then, how did you? Does it matter? Neil interrupted. You've been living a double life for 6 months. You've been prostituting yourself and taking payments through a shell company. You've lied to me, to Emma, to everyone. So yes, I'm divorcing you. And yes, I'm taking full custody. Neil, wait, you don't understand, Ross. He manipulated you, I know. He groomed you into this. But you still made choices, Marissa. And now you face consequences. Please, Marissa was crying now. Please, can we talk about this? I can explain. There's nothing to explain. My attorney will be in touch. Goodbye, Marissa. He hung up. Emma, who'd been listening from the hallway, came into the kitchen. Her eyes were wide. It's really happening. It's really happening, Neil confirmed. His phone rang again, Marissa calling back. He declined the call. It rang a third time. He blocked the number. Then he received a text from Beverly. Ross just got called into an emergency meeting with Schultz and the board. Margaret confirmed she received everything. He's going down. By noon, Ross Huff had been terminated from Grandview Hotels and escorted from the property by security. By 1 p.m., Marissa had been called and informed her position was also eliminated effective immediately. By 2 p.m., media outlets were reporting that Grandview Hotels was investigating allegations of executive misconduct. By 3 p.m., Neil's phone was flooded with messages, from Kelvin expressing satisfaction, from Beverly confirming success, from Edmund laying out next steps for the divorce proceedings, and from Marissa, via a new number he hadn't blocked yet, You've destroyed my life. Everything I work for. How could you do this? Neil read the message, then deleted it without responding. How could he? Simple. Because she destroyed his life first. He was just returning the favor. Chapter 7. The Unraveling. The days following the explosion were chaos, but it was controlled chaos, the kind Neil had orchestrated and could therefore manage. Marissa called from 17 different numbers over the weekend before Neil changed his number entirely. Her messages oscillated between rage, bargaining, and desperate apologies. You're a bastard for ambushing me like this, please. Let's talk. I can explain everything you're destroying. Emma's relationship with her mother, Ross, manipulated me. I'm a victim here too. I'll fight you on custody, and I'll win. Neil forwarded everything to Edmund, who added each message to their evidence file. She's making this easier, Edmund noted during a Monday morning call. Every communication shows instability and poor judgment. Keep documenting everything, but don't respond. Emma read some of the messages. Neil didn't hide them from her, and her expression hardened further. She's not even asking about me, she observed. It's all about her. I noticed that too, Neil said quietly. At school Monday, Emma's teacher, Ms. Chan, requested a meeting. Neil arrived during his lunch break, finding her in the classroom organizing art supplies. Mr. West, Ms. Chan said, her expression concerned. Emma's been quieter lately, more withdrawn. I wanted to check in. Neil made a decision in that moment. Emma's teacher needed to know enough to support her. My wife and I are separating. It's been difficult, and Emma's processing a lot. I'm sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can do to help? Sometimes kids benefit from consistent routines at school when home life is unstable. That will be good, Neil said. And if Emma seems particularly down or needs to talk, I want her to know she has support here. Absolutely. We have a counselor available if you think that would help. Maybe. Let me talk to Emma about it. That evening, Neil brought it up over dinner. Your teacher noticed you've been quiet lately. She mentioned the school has a counselor if you want to talk to someone. Emma pushed food around her plate. Do you think I need one? I think talking to someone who isn't me might help. Someone who's not family, who can give you a safe space to process everything. Because I'm damaged now? Emma's voice was sharp. Because you're human, Neil corrected. And humans sometimes need help carrying heavy things. Emma considered this. Okay, I'll try it. Thank you for being open to it. Meanwhile, the professional fallout continued. Beverly sent daily updates that read like a corporate thriller. Day 3. Grandview's internal investigation confirmed Ross used company resources for personal gain. They're pursuing criminal charges for fraud and embezzlement. Day 5. Christy Short and Brooke Willis both resigned from Grandview. Short is cooperating with investigators. Willis is lawyering up. Day 7. Darren Pacheco's wife filed for divorce after learning about his involvement. 3 other clients have been quietly contacted by attorneys representing their wives. Day 9. Darren Monroe in Seattle has also been terminated. Network fully exposed. Ross, according to Jimmy's monitoring of his communications, was unraveling spectacularly. His attorney had advised him to stay quiet, but Ross was making desperate calls to former clients, to his ex-wives, to anyone who might provide financial support or character witnesses. No one was returning his calls. On day 11, Ross did something stupid. He contacted Neil directly. The email arrived late Wednesday night, sent from a new email address to Neil's work account. Subject, we need to talk. West, you've destroyed my career and my life over a personal matter that doesn't concern you. Your wife came to me willingly, participated willingly, and profited willingly. If you think you're some kind of hero here, you're delusional. I have resources. I have attorneys. And I will make sure everyone knows that Marissa was an active, enthusiastic participant in everything. She'll lose custody, lose credibility, lose everything. Is that what you want for Emma's mother? Call off your investigation, drop the divorce proceedings, and we can all move on with minimal damage. Continue this crusade, and I'll ensure maximum collateral damage. For Marissa, for your daughter, for you. Think carefully about your next move. R.H. Neil read the email 3 times, feeling cold satisfaction. Ross had just made multiple mistakes, threatening Neil directly, referencing the investigation, implying awareness of Neil's role in exposing him, and most importantly, putting threats in writing. He forwarded the email to Edmund, Beverly, and Jimmy with a simple message. He just gave us a gift. Edmund called within minutes. This is attempted blackmail and witness intimidation. I'm forwarding this to the prosecutor handling Ross's criminal case and to Grandview's legal team. He just handed us more ammunition. Good, Neil said. Ross is panicking, Edmund continued. Panicked men make mistakes. Let him keep digging his own grave. Beverly's text was more succinct. Idiot. Let him think you're considering his offer. String him along while we tighten the noose. Neil composed a response to Ross, carefully calibrated to sound uncertain. Ross, this is all spinning out of control faster than I anticipated. I never wanted to hurt Marissa or create this level of destruction. I need time to think about what you said. Give me a few days to talk to my attorney about options. NW. The response came within an hour. Reasonable. Take the time you need. But remember, the longer this goes on, the worse it gets for everyone, including your daughter. RH. He took the bait, Neil told Beverly over the phone. Now what? Now we let him think he has leverage while we complete our work. I'm coordinating with Margaret Schultz at Grandview. They want Ross prosecuted fully to protect the company from liability. The prosecutor is building a strong case. And we're documenting every communication Ross makes that could be construed as threats or intimidation. Timeline: 2 more weeks maximum before formal charges are filed. Your divorce case is already moving through court. Preliminary hearing is scheduled for 3 weeks from now. Marissa's attorney is trying to negotiate, but Edmund says your evidence is too strong for her to get anything beyond minimal custody and equitable asset division. And Marissa herself? How's she doing? Beverly's tone softened slightly. Not well, from what I can see. She's back in Oak Ridge, staying with her sister, Beverly, temporarily. Wait, your name is Beverly too? That's Beverly Dean. Marissa's sister is Beverly Stanley. Different people. Right, sorry. Continue. She's been to 3 attorneys trying to find one who'll tell her she has a case. None will take her on beyond basic representation. She's lost her job, her income, her relationship with Ross, who's now publicly blaming her for everything, and she knows she's losing Emma. It's a complete collapse. Neil should have felt satisfaction. Mostly he felt hollow. Does she deserve sympathy? She deserves accountability, Beverly said carefully. Sympathy is between you and your conscience. But Neil, don't let sympathy derail what you've built. She participated in 6 months of deception and exploitation. The consequences are appropriate. Agreed. On Friday of that week, Emma had her first session with the school counselor, Ms. Wagner. She came home quiet but less withdrawn. How was it? Neil asked as they prepared dinner together. She's nice. She said it's normal to feel angry and sad at the same time about Mom. It is normal. She asked if I miss Mom. Emma chopped vegetables with precise movements. I said I miss who I thought Mom was, not who she actually is. Neil's chest tightened. That's very insightful. Ms. Wagner said it's okay to grieve the version of someone even if that version wasn't real. Emma paused. Is that weird? No, Neil said gently. That's healthy. Emma nodded, then added quietly, I'm glad you didn't lie to me. About what Mom did. Ms. Wagner said some parents try to protect their kids by lying, but then the kids don't understand why everything's falling apart. You deserve the truth, Neil said. You're strong enough to handle it. Sometimes I don't feel strong, Emma admitted. Sometimes I feel like everything's broken. Neil pulled her into a hug. Everything is broken, but we're going to build something new, something honest. Just you and me. Just us, Emma echoed, and Neil felt her relax slightly in his arms. Saturday afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. Neil answered the door to find Beverly Stanley, Marissa's sister, Emma's aunt, standing on the porch. She looked exhausted, her eyes red-rimmed, her expression a mixture of anger and desperation. Neil, can we talk? Neil considered sending her away, but curiosity won out. Emma's at a friend's house. You have 10 minutes. They sat in the living room, Beverly perched on the edge of the couch, Neil in the armchair across from her. Marissa's destroyed, Beverly said without preamble. I've never seen her like this. She's staying with me because she has nowhere else to go. She's barely eating, barely sleeping. She just sits and cries. And you're here to make me feel guilty? Neil asked flatly. I'm here to ask what it would take for you to ease up, to give her a chance to rebuild some kind of life, to let her have joint custody of Emma instead of minimum visitation. No, Neil said simply. Neil, she destroyed our family for money and excitement. She lied to me for 6 months. She put Emma in a position to accidentally discover her mother's affair in the most traumatic way possible. She spent $40,000 of our joint money on herself while depositing a fraction of that into savings and calling it building our future. She entertained her boss's clients for cash. She's lucky I'm not pushing for criminal charges. Beverly's face crumpled. She made terrible choices. I know that. But Ross manipulated her. Ross created opportunities. Marissa took them, repeatedly, for 6 months. Neil leaned forward. Beverly, I understand she's your sister and you love her. But she doesn't get to escape consequences because she's sad. She needs to face what she did. What about Emma? Doesn't she need her mother? She needs a mother who's present, honest, and puts her first. Marissa hasn't been that person in a year. Until she proves she can be, Emma's better off with limited contact. Beverly stood abruptly. You're being cruel. I'm being protective, Neil corrected. There's a difference. After she left, Neil sat in the quiet living room, questioning himself for the first time. Was he being too harsh? Was he letting revenge override Emma's needs? Then he remembered Emma's face when she dragged him away from that apartment door. Remembered her crying in the car. Remembered her saying, Mom forgot I existed. No, he wasn't being too harsh. He was being exactly as protective as Emma needed. Chapter 8, The Trial. The preliminary custody hearing was scheduled for a gray Tuesday in late November. Edmund had advised Neil extensively on courtroom behavior. Stay calm, stick to facts, let the evidence speak, don't let Marissa's attorneys provoke emotional responses. They'll try to paint you as vindictive and controlling, Edmund warned. They'll argue that you're using Emma as a weapon. Don't take the bait. You're simply a father protecting his daughter from an unstable situation. The courtroom was smaller than Neil expected, wood-paneled and austere. He sat at one table with Edmund and Beverly, the PI, not the sister. Marissa sat at the other table with her attorney, a brittle-looking woman named Dana Lloyd who had a reputation for aggressive tactics in family law cases. Marissa looked terrible, gaunt, exhausted, wearing a conservative suit that probably came from her sister's closet. When their eyes met, Neil saw a mixture of anger, grief, and pleading. He looked away. Emma was not present. Children her age typically didn't attend preliminary hearings unless the judge specifically requested it. She was at school, probably in Ms. Wagner's office, waiting for Neil to text her when it was over. Judge Marguerite Moody entered, a black woman in her 60s with silver hair and an expression that suggested she'd seen every family law game in the book and wasn't interested in nonsense. Everyone stood, then sat at her gesture. This is a preliminary hearing to address temporary custody arrangements for Emma West, age 10, while divorce proceedings are ongoing between Neil and Marissa West. Judge Moody began, reviewing her notes. Mr. Bond, you filed for your client to have primary physical custody with limited supervised visitation for Mrs. West. That's an extreme position. Justify it. Edmund stood. Your Honor, the evidence we've submitted demonstrates that Mrs. West engaged in a pattern of deception, financial misconduct, and behavior that directly harmed the child's emotional well-being over a period of 6 months. She was living a double life, involving activities that would expose her, and by extension, Emma, to dangerous individuals and situations. She has shown no accountability for her choices, and her instability makes unsupervised custody a risk. Dana Lloyd stood, her voice sharp. Your Honor, my client made mistakes within her marriage. Adult mistakes that have nothing to do with her capability as a mother. Mr. West is weaponizing those mistakes to alienate Emma from her mother. Marissa loves her daughter and has been an excellent parent for 10 years. This is a clear case of vindictive litigation. Judge Moody held up a hand. I've read the filed evidence. Mrs. West You engaged in an extramarital affair with your supervisor, accepted payments through a shell company for what was essentially escort services, and spent significant marital funds without your husband's knowledge. Correct. Marissa stood shakily. Your Honor, I was manipulated by my supervisor. He groomed me into a situation I didn't fully understand. Did he force you? Judge Moody interrupted. No, but did he physically threaten you? No. Did you take payments willingly? Marissa's face crumpled. Yes. Did you lie to your husband and daughter about your activities? Yes. Sit down. Judge Moody's tone wasn't cruel, but it was unforgiving. Ms. Lloyd, your client is an adult who made adult choices. The question before me isn't whether she was manipulated. I'm sure she was, to some degree. The question is whether those choices demonstrate the kind of judgment and stability required for primary custody of a 10-year-old child. Dana Lloyd looked like she wanted to argue, but couldn't find solid ground. Your Honor, removing primary custody would devastate Marissa's relationship with Emma. Children need their mothers. Children need stable, honest parents, Judge Moody corrected. Mr. Bond, you've requested supervised visitation. Explain your reasoning. Edmund stood again. Emma accidentally discovered her mother's affair in a traumatic manner. Since then, Mrs. West has made no genuine effort to repair that relationship. Her communications have focused on her own situation rather than her daughter's emotional needs. We believe supervised visitation allows for relationship repair while protecting Emma from further manipulation or inappropriate conversations about the divorce. Mrs. West, Judge Moody addressed Marissa directly. Have you sought counseling or therapy to address the issues that led to your choices? Not yet, Your Honor. Everything happened so quickly. Not quickly enough to prevent 6 months of deception, Judge Moody said dryly. Mr. West, has your daughter expressed preferences about custody? Neil stood. Yes, Your Honor. Emma has stated clearly that she wants to live primarily with me. She loves her mother, but doesn't currently trust her. She's willing to see her mother in supervised settings, but isn't comfortable with unsupervised time. How old is Emma? 10, Your Honor. Old enough to have her preferences weighed significantly. Judge Moody made notes. Here's my ruling for temporary custody pending final divorce proceedings. Primary physical custody to Mr. Neil West. Mrs. Marissa West will have supervised visitation every other Saturday for 4 hours. Location to be agreed upon by both parties. Supervisor to be a professional court-appointed monitor. Therapy is required for Mrs. West. She will provide proof of ongoing sessions to the court. Family therapy involving Emma is recommended, but not required unless Emma consents. Dana Lloyd stood quickly. Your Honor, 4 hours every other week is insufficient. Ms. Lloyd, your client is lucky I'm not limiting it further given the evidence. She can work on rebuilding trust during those hours and petition for increased time if she demonstrates stability and genuine effort at repair. This ruling stands unless circumstances change significantly. Bang went the gavel. Neil felt something release in his chest. Not celebration. Emma still had a long road ahead, but relief. He protected her. The system had worked. Marissa was crying silently, her attorney's arm around her shoulders. Neil felt a flicker of something. Not sympathy exactly, but recognition of shared loss. They'd built a life together, and now it was rubble. Outside the courtroom, Edmund clapped Neil's shoulder. That was the best outcome we could have hoped for. Judge Moody saw through Lloyd's tactics immediately. What happens next? Divorce proceeds. We're still negotiating asset division, but the custody decision strengthens your position on everything else. Marissa's attorney will push for better financial settlement since her client lost on custody, but your evidence of her spending mitigates that. We'll likely settle out of court within 6 to 8 weeks. Beverly, the PI, joined them. Roshuff was formally charged this morning with fraud, embezzlement, and witness intimidation based on his email to you. Prosecutor says they have a strong case. He's looking at potential jail time. Good, Neil said simply. He went to pick up Emma from school, finding her in Ms. Wagner's office as expected. She looked up as he entered, her face anxious. Primary custody to me, Neil said quietly. Supervised visitation for your mom every other Saturday. Emma's shoulders dropped with relief. So I don't have to stay with her? Not unless you want to. And not without supervision. I don't want to yet, Emma said. Maybe later. When she's different. That's okay. That's your choice. Emma hugged him tightly. Thank you for protecting me. Neil held his daughter, this brave, wounded girl, and promised silently that he always would. Chapter 9. The Reconstruction. 3 months later, on a bright February morning, Neil signed the final divorce decree in Edmund's office. Marissa had signed her copy the day before, not contesting the terms after her attorney advised that fighting would only drain her finances further without changing the outcome. The settlement was straightforward. Neil retained primary physical custody of Emma. Marissa had supervised visitation every other Saturday, with potential for reevaluation after 6 months of therapy compliance. Assets divided 60/40 in Neil's favor due to Marissa's misappropriation of marital funds. No spousal support given Marissa's earning capacity and misconduct. Emma's college fund, which Neil had been contributing to consistently, remained untouched and under his control. It's done, Edmund said, sliding the signed documents into a folder. You're officially single. How's Marissa handling it? Neil asked, not sure why he cared. According to Dana Lloyd, she's living with her sister, working part-time in event planning, attending therapy twice a week. She's compliant with the visitation schedule and, apparently, trying to turn her life around. Whether that's genuine or strategic, time will tell. Neil thought about this. Marissa's last supervised visit with Emma, 2 weeks ago, had been awkward but less hostile. Marissa had asked Emma about school, soccer, her art projects. She hadn't mentioned the divorce or tried to badmouth Neil. It was a small step, but it was something. What about Ross? Neil asked. Trials in April. Prosecutors confident. Between the financial evidence, the video documentation Jimmy provided, and testimony from Christy Short, they have him dead to rights. He's likely looking at 3 to 5 years. Good. Neil left Edmund's office feeling oddly empty. He'd spent 4 months fighting, strategizing, protecting Emma, and destroying the people who'd hurt them. Now it was over, and he had to figure out what came next. Emma was at soccer practice. She'd joined a competitive spring league and was thriving. Neil drove to the field, arriving early enough to watch the last 15 minutes. Emma played with fierce concentration, her small frame darting between defenders, setting up plays for her teammates. When she scored a goal, her teammates mobbed her in celebration. After practice, they went to their favorite pizza place, the same one they'd gone to with Marissa months ago, though neither mentioned that. Coach says there's a tournament in Sacramento next month, Emma said, demolishing a slice of pepperoni. Can we go? Absolutely. I'll request time off. Cool. Emma took another bite, then added casually, I saw Mom on Saturday. I know. How was it? Weird. She asked about my grades and my art project for school. She didn't cry this time. That's progress. I guess. Emma was quiet for a moment. Ms. Wagner says it's okay to be mad at Mom, and also hope she gets better. That both feelings can exist. Ms. Wagner's smart. She says you are too, for how you handled everything. Neil felt unexpected emotion tighten his throat. I just did what I thought was right. You did, Emma said seriously. You protected us. You didn't let them get away with hurting us. That matters. It does, Neil agreed. That night, after Emma went to bed, Neil sat in his home office looking at the plans for a new project at work. A children's hospital that needed to be earthquake-resistant, but also welcoming and non-threatening for young patients. It was the kind of challenge he loved, complex engineering with human stakes. His phone buzzed with a text from Kelvin. Heard the divorce is final. Be here tomorrow to celebrate? Neil smiled slightly and texted back, sure. Marlowe's at 7. Perfect. Proud of you, brother. You played it smart and came out on top. Thanks. Couldn't have done it without your help. That's what brothers do. Neil set down the phone and looked around the office. Photos of Emma covered the walls, her at various soccer games, school events, birthdays. Marissa was in some of the older photos, smiling and present. He'd have to decide eventually whether to keep those or put them away. Maybe Emma should decide. They were her memories, too. A sound from the hallway made him look up. Emma stood in the doorway in her pajamas, looking small and young in the way she rarely did anymore. "Can't sleep?" Neil asked. "Bad dream." She came in and sat in the chair across from his desk. "About the apartment. About that day." Neil's chest tightened. "What happened in the dream? I didn't pull you away in time. You saw everything. And then you were so angry that you left too. And I was alone." I know it's not real," Emma interrupted. "I know you're not going anywhere. But sometimes my brain forgets." Neil came around the desk and crouched in front of her chair. "I'm not going anywhere. Ever. You're stuck with me until you go to college. And even then, I'm going to call every day and embarrass you." Emma smiled slightly. "Promise. Promise. We're a team, remember? Just us. Just us," Neil confirmed. Emma hugged him, and they stayed like that for a while. When she finally pulled back, her expression was more settled. "Dad, do you think Mom will ever be okay?" "I think she has a chance," Neil said carefully, "if she does the work. If she gets honest with herself about what she did and why. But that's her journey. We can hope for her without carrying the weight of fixing her. Ms. Wagner says that too, that we can care without carrying." "Smart woman." Emma stood. "I'm going back to bed. Tournament's in 5 weeks. I need to get sleep for training." "Good night, sweetheart." "Good night, Dad. Love you." "Love you too." After she left, Neil sat at his desk and opened a new document on his computer. He titled it, Lessons Learned. He wrote, 1. Trust is built slowly and destroyed instantly. Guard it carefully. 2. Some people will show you who they are if you pay attention. Believe them. 3. When foundations crack, you have 2 choices. Shore them up or tear down and rebuild. Choose wisely. 4. Revenge isn't about destruction. It's about consequences meeting choices. 5. Protect those who can't protect themselves, even when it's hard. 6. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is ask for help. 7. Justice and mercy aren't opposites. Both have their place. 8. Build your life on honesty, even when lies would be easier. 9. Your children are watching how you handle adversity. Teach them well. 10. In the end, integrity matters more than victory. He looked at the list, then printed it and pinned it to the corkboard above his desk next to photos of Emma. For months ago, his life had shattered. He'd discovered betrayal, orchestrated exposure, fought for his daughter, and emerged victorious. But victory wasn't about Marissa's ruin or Ross's imprisonment. It was about building something new from the rubble. Something honest. Something strong. He and Emma would be okay. More than okay. They'd be better than before because now their foundation was solid. No mirrors, no angles, no hidden cameras or secret lives. Just truth in each other. Neil closed his laptop, turned off the office light, and went upstairs. He checked on Emma one more time. She was sleeping peacefully, her breathing steady. He stood at her doorway for a moment. This fierce, brilliant daughter who'd been forced to grow up too fast, but who'd emerged stronger for it. Then he went to his own room, to the bed he no longer shared with anyone, and felt something he hadn't felt in months. Peace. The architecture of his revenge had been perfect, precise, calculated, destructive. But the architecture of his reconstruction would be better. Built on bedrock instead of sand. Built to last. Outside, the February night was clear and cold. Stars scattered across the darkness like points of light in a vast structure. Neil looked at them through the window and thought about how even in the absence of light, there were always points to navigate by. He'd been lost for a while, but now he knew exactly where he was going. Forward. Always forward. With Emma beside him, that was enough. Epilogue. 6 months later, Rossoff was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison for fraud, embezzlement, and witness intimidation. His assets were seized to pay restitution to Grandview Hotels. His name became synonymous with corporate corruption in hospitality industry publications. Marissa completed her therapy requirements and rebuilt a modest career in event coordination. Her visits with Emma gradually increased to unsupervised time as Emma chose, though their relationship remained cautious. She never remarried. Emma continued to thrive, leading her soccer team to a regional championship and developing a talent for engineering and design that made Neil ridiculously proud. She saw her mother regularly, but lived full-time with Neil, which they both preferred. Neil took a promotion at his firm and started designing schools and public spaces, architecture that served communities rather than corporations. He dated occasionally, but wasn't a rush. He had Emma, he had work he believed in, and he had peace. That was more than enough. The mirror from the Riverside apartment was removed when Grandview renovated the unit. It was destroyed along with all the other materials from Ross's operation. Sometimes, late at night when the house was quiet, Neil thought about that day Emma had pulled him away from the door. How one moment of innocent discovery had unraveled everything. How destruction had led to reconstruction. He thought about foundations and earthquakes, about structures that withstood pressure and those that crumbled, about the difference between appearing strong and being strong. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that he'd made the right choices. Not the easy ones, not the ones that preserved comfort or avoided pain, but the right ones. And in the end, that was all that mattered. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.